welcome to the 24th episode of Eye on Hong Kong. This is Harminder.
This is Keith.
And we will talk about the top stories of the week in Hong Kong. I guess we'll start off with everybody's, well, I don't know about everybody's. I know that some people absolutely hate him and call him a sinner of 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Everybody's almost favorite
Everybody loves
colonial
Chris.
governor Chris Patton. Lord Patton now.
He's getting fatter.
No comment. But he's still like a adorable guy that I just love to just hang out and have a drink with and talk geopolitics all day long. Anyways, Chris Patton testified in the Foreign Affairs Committee relating to Hong Kong and one country, two systems, and if the joint declaration is being upheld. And I watched the entire testimony, and there was some really great stuff out of Chris Patton. All right. The big point that he made was that he saw an extraordinary lack of leadership in this government when it concerns to the Occupy movement. And that is very true. The amount of leadership coming out of the C.Y. Leung government is pathetic. Because you can tell that he doesn't run anything at this point. It seems like he is just there to take orders and execute them.
You mean taking order from PRC?
The liaison office down the street.
I think so. He's actually not taking the instructions from Peking. I think he's taking from the Saiwan, the Kennedy town, where the liaison office is.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I mean, why else is he such an inept leader? Well, all three of them have been the inept leaders, but this one's really bad. And I completely agreed with him. There is no leadership, even when Governor Patton was here. And he took his orders from London. But he stuck to his guns on a lot of issues. He took a lot of heat for a lot of his positions.
Yeah.
He was cursed by the Chinese side. He was frowned upon by the UK side. Yeah. But the man still didn't just project, but he was a leader. And he showed that. C.Y. Leung has absolutely nothing on Chris Patton. And I'm not lionizing the colonial administration or the colonial past. I'm just saying that compared to Chris Patton, C.Y. Leung is pathetic. C.Y. Leung seems to run his government like he's the chief executive, literally, of a board, and he's the chief executive of some large corporation. That's how you run a city. No, it's not.
I think it's quite different when you compare. I mean, the thing is that in the colonial administration, they did actually think about Hong Kong people first.
Absolutely.
But then now,
after the 70s, though,
right?
Yeah.
And then it's like now the Hong Kong government they would stress the one system first, one country first, and then they will also ask people of Hong Kong to be considerate. We have to think about the people about the north first. We have to take care of the people from China as well. So a lot of policy.
Take care of them how?
When they building this bridge to nowhere, and actually they're thinking of China when they're building this railway, also about China, and then now we have to spend even more money.
Another $5 billion,
for them.
Yeah,
and it's not really for Hong Kong people.
No, because here's what the South China Morning Post said today: only vehicles holding cross-border permits will be allowed to use the bridge. The latest figures from 2010 show such permits had been granted to 20,500 private cars, 950 coaches, buses, and 15,900 goods vehicles in Hong Kong. What is that? A combined total of under 50,000? So on a good day, maybe 2,000 vehicles will be from Hong Kong using that bridge. That bridge is more interconnectedness to the mainland at the expense of our money.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind it if there was a purpose for it, but there's no purpose for it. We already have speedboats that can go to hydrofoils that can go to Macau. Zhuhai is still kind of unused land. But I don't understand. Do you want us to make that into an industrial base or something? They haven't clarified what its use is right now. And yes, they're trying to integrate Hong Kong more and more into the mainland. And the thing is, it's not keeping up with the change in our culture, society. They're forcing it on us, and that's causing this big backlash. And somebody like Chris Patton would understand that.
Yeah, and when actually he warned us about that too. We have to be careful of the word was that the barbarian across the border.
Yeah.
So now I couldn't really say that they're barbarian, but the people are actually coming here, and then what our government telling us that we have to be, tolerant. We have to, tolerate what they did, and because we are one family. And
I'm tolerant, but I'm not tolerant of somebody taking a dump on my street.
Well, you should tell them, be kind to them.
But then I might be arrested in the future for discriminating against them for being mainlanders.
Well,
if this amendment goes through by the EOC.
Well, I think sometimes people are very sensitive in Hong Kong, and I don't really see the amendment bills of the discrimination having that kind of effect. People in the internet saying that they have the right to vote. I don't think so.
No,
they don't have it under the bill. But what it actually reflects that a lot of Hong Kong people nowadays are very, very sensitive about how these government trying to work for the people from China, but not for the people in Hong Kong, and then they sometimes misunderstand the law.
And the pro-establishment blames that on a lack of education of the young people here, saying that we have a whole generation or two now that is growing up being antagonistic to China because they don't understand Chinese history. Well, I've read a lot of Chinese history, and most of it is not good. So I don't know what they mean. The only thing they can say with Chinese history is that we've had a lot of war.
No. The four invention, the great invention in the ancient time.
Okay, well, I mean, there's some good stuff. Yes, Chinese created a lot of inventions. Created paper, didn't they?
Yeah.
A lot of useful stuff. The thing is that most of the history is warlords, emperors, invaders.
I thought people like it. People like reading that, like Lord of the Rings.
I am. Literally, when I read Chinese history, it's very interesting. But then there was a lot of backstabbing, a lot of betrayal, a lot of concubines, a lot of
hot TV stuff. Just like
it's literally like TVB dramas of the ancient times. A lot of this history. Thing is,
Game of Thrones.
It is like Game of Thrones in a lot of ways. The ancient Chinese history, especially when you're dealing with the emperors. And then once the emperor was overthrown in 1911 by Dr. Sun Yat-sen, then we got a Republic of China. Then it became even more corrupt with the warlords and Chiang Kai-shek. And then you had Mao Zedong and the communists launching their war against Chiang Kai-shek from the mountains, and then the communists took over, and then the Chinese history is very, very, very rich, but it's mostly bad. So is that what you want to teach? Chinese history is bad?
I mean, the recent 100 years probably is very, very bad. But
no, keep going further. It's still really bad because it's mostly war.
Sometimes they have a very long time of peace, like probably 200 years or 100 years, and then they will fall apart. And then,
over and over again. And I understand the communist worry that could happen again. That's why they think they need to rule with an iron fist.
They shouldn't rule China like an empire.
But with an iron fist and a very modern military with a unarmed society, right? That's the difference. The thing is that now Chinese are getting more liberal ideas in their head through travel, when they travel, they can read stuff that they couldn't before and all this. They bring it back with them. How are you going to deal with that gap now? You are going to have to change politically. Not everybody's born, bred, raised in the red, the red schools all the way to the Communist Party membership. Most are now going overseas for their education, learn a different way. But then I can also understand that a lot of people that go overseas tend to stick in their own bubble. But not everybody's like that. Some people ventured out and tried to be more liberal in their thoughts, but they're bringing it back. What are they going to do when people say, no, we don't like this system anymore?
Well, probably it's quite one-sided opinion about people going out, and then they will be more liberal, so-called. And probably what they will see that is a collapse of the capitalism or the collapse of the democracy, so-called. And it's the failure of the U.S. government. How could they implement?
It's not democracy that... Well, first of all, the United States is not a pure democracy. People really make that mistake. It is a republic and a constitutional republic. So, it's not... A pure democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner, where a republic, you have rights that are inalienable and cannot be taken away by a vote. That's the difference. Problem is that people have gotten so fat, dumb, and lazy over there is that corrupt elements have gotten into their governments on both sides of the party. It's a one-party dictatorship now. I'm going to talk to Gerald Celente, who's going to be our guest later on about this, is that the failure of democracy is not democracy or capitalism, is that we are not practicing either. We're practicing fascism more and crony capitalism more. We've veered off from the definition. That's the problem.
Right.
Look, people think that, and they also blame a lot of socialist countries. It's true. A lot of socialist countries are collapsing now because eventually, like Margaret Thatcher said, it's great until you run out of other people's money. That's what's happening in a lot of these socialist countries. Here's an example. When President John F. Kennedy cut taxes, he cut taxes by 50%. The next year, tax receipts doubled. But now the mentality is, no, don't cut taxes, raise them more to fund stuff. But then it's not going to the economy. See, all that stuff is gone. Now it's just rich people bad, poor people need more minimum wage when we need
it would turn out to be a welfare state.
Yeah, exactly. It always turns out to hell on earth eventually, where you're dependent so much on the state that the state can't deliver, and then they need to find an enemy and a scapegoat. And anyway, it's a whole different topic for another day. The failure of capitalism and the failure of democracy is not because of what it is. It's a failure because it's gotten corrupt.
Back to our topic, actually.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about Chris Patton, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about Chris Patton. Yeah, so what did he say? It seems that the commentary in the local Hong Kong press is that he's the only one who defending Hong Kong in
and
UK.
The only one that understands Hong Kong people.
Yeah, it seems that, is it true that it reflects in the parliament?
Yes.
Oh, how sad.
It is sad. He's the only one that's saying everything that the British should be saying under a joint declaration. Let me continue with his testimony. He said that the 6 months reports that the British foreign...
I can do that report every day. It's just copy and paste.
Yeah. He called it bland.
Very true.
And he said that's putting it mildly. Okay? He said it was like a pamphlet that you get when you visit a national park. That's how he compared it to. He said it was that boring and bland, like a tourist pamphlet.
Yeah.
Okay? That's how it read. And he said, and they asked him, was the Sino-British Declaration the best deal we could get under the circumstances? He said, yes. Under the circumstances, that was the best deal that we could get for Hong Kong and for ourselves and for China. But he stressed this. It is the joint declaration, not the China declaration, where China seems to have this mentality. No, it is the China declaration.
Right.
He says we should be rebuking them for it, and just because we do does not mean we're going to lose major contracts. They still want to do business with us. The reason we don't have the contracts that Germany does with China is because we don't manufacture anymore. They do. So he ripped the British economy for that. Where's our manufacturing base? You guys ruined it. And he says that, before 1997, the UK had obligations to China. Now China has obligations to the UK under the joint declaration. that they must follow what was agreed upon for 50 years. But UK government doesn't seem to want to say anything about that. He said that people think that the only way to appease China is not to argue with them. He says it's not true at all. He says that is not true. You can't argue with them. They will still want to trade with us. They will still want to do business with us. They will not cut us off because we have a lot to offer, and so do they. I'm paraphrasing, right? And I agree with him. What do you think?
I agree on the part that when you're dealing with the Communist Party, you shouldn't show that you're weak. They will only respect you if you are a good opponent.
And he said that, I'm looking for the quote here. He said, okay, I'll just have to paraphrase. If I can find it later, I'll quote it. He said that, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What did you say there?
I said that they should be a good player in the game, and they shouldn't back down and just always agree with China.
Right. He said if we don't rebuke them for what they say, that only encourages more bad behavior. He said that.
It's exactly just like Hong Kong people. It's the same.
Yeah.
They will keep on pushing and pushing. They try to test your line, and they will just. If you don't stand up and fight, then you will lose it.
Exactly. Eternal vigilance is important to keep our rights and our way of life. The moment we get fat, dumb, and lazy, that's when they take over.
That's right.
Right? He also said that the Foreign Office should speak up when China says Hong Kong is strictly an internal affair. He said no. Under the Joint Declaration, it is not. They can speak up publicly and privately. And for British honor and sovereignty.
Sovereignty?
Sovereignty, we are a sovereign power as well. We have something in the world to offer. We're not just a kitty cat, We have to exercise our sovereignty as much as China does. Otherwise, it does become the China Declaration.
It seems that it's already China Declaration now.
Basically.
Because they keep silent.
He said the basic law is in breach. He said that. He said Article 45 particularly is in breach. Because he says that in it says based on the actual situation, the Article 45 is dealing with the chief executive election.
Yeah.
He says actual situation, we'll look at the actual situation now. He says gradually and orderly progress is 17 years and there's no directly elected legislature. Plus, we were just talking about the CE. It's a glacial pace. It's too slow.
Yeah.
And he said that the nominating committee must be broadly represented, and it's clearly not. So it's the Article 45 is in breach, and we're not saying anything about it, he's saying. Well, you see? This is the kind of stuff that the Foreign Office should be saying.
But not copy and paste these...
bland
pamphlets.
Yeah, exactly. He continued to say that and I agree with this, that the Hong Kong police, in this quote, put into a position as a substitute for policy. He says when policy should be implemented by the chief executive and his administration to solve the crisis, they're using the police as the policy.
I actually, when he said that, and I read it from the newspaper, I didn't really... understand, and I didn't really find any evidence of that until these dates that coming out with this news about a police officer who wearing this yellow ribbon representing that she supports the true democracy in Hong Kong, and then the police officer, they said that she resigned voluntarily.
Is that true, or should she get fired?
Well, that's police. The police said that the PR guy, the Hui Sir said that lady was resigned voluntarily. Oh, not Hui Sir, Gong Sir is another officer, said that she just tendered her resignation. But at the same time, when this police officer handing out the blue ribbon outside the door of the the office in the police station. Then they say that the police officer, they have the freedom of speech and expression, that they can
only if it's agreeable with them.
Exactly. It seems that they are really becoming the tool for some political
and that's what
power.
He's saying.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. They're put into a position where policy. He says this needs to be decided by politics, not by the police.
Yeah, it seems that Chris Patton really knows Hong Kong
very well for somebody who doesn't live here.
Yeah,
who's thousands of kilometers away. It's sad, really. I love the guy for knowing all this, but it's really sad that he knows more than our people here.
Right.
And the whole thing about the UK not introducing democracy to Hong Kong, but China is, he said, he agreed the record is not a good one. Okay? But why? He says the Chinese leaders made it clear that the last thing they wanted the UK to do was to introduce democracy in Hong Kong. He said, if you do, this is the Chinese saying, if you introduce democracy into Hong Kong, they will want independence like what happened with Singapore. That's why they didn't allow the British to introduce democracy very early into Hong Kong, like in the 40s, like they were about to do, or even after that. Okay? He said that the Chinese always say the UK never gave Hong Kong democracy, and this is what he said, quote unquote, "What did I do for the last for 5 years?"
He did give us a direct election in the legislature.
The only time.
Yeah,
the entire legislature.
Very, very short time.
Yeah,
in our
2
history.
years.
Yeah,
where we had a directly elected legislature, and then they dissolved it in '97.
Yeah.
And put in some puppet legislator for another 2 years. My goodness. And then he says things are going backwards instead of forwards. He said that, what to do now. He says that LegCo should move towards direct elections more rapidly. That you can start with broadening the base of the functional constituencies, as in get rid of the corporate voting, I'm assuming, and get individual votes to start, as a start for 2016. And that the nominating committee should be broadly represented. That is not broadly represented, 1,200 people. And who votes behind them. He said the ultimate aim is a directly elected legislature. He said that when we wrote the basic law and when we talked about democracy, the focus was really on the legislature, not the chief executive. Because we expected the power to be held by them, mostly. But now it's kind of flipped because the executive hands bills to the legislature, and the legislature can't make any bills.
Well, they just rubber stamp now.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much, because it's majority dominated by the pro-establishment.
Yeah.
Now, when he talked about the protests, he said that it's not just about democracy. He says that young people see their future stolen. He said that because he sees that the out-of-control property prices, the hopeless job market and all this stuff, that's a big reason why they're out there. It's not just about democracy. He said that it could have been prevented last summer if the government had showed more leadership, more flexibility. He says now it's difficult for anybody to climb down, both sides.
Sure.
He says that the government should offer more than what they've offered so far to resolve the crisis. And he went on to say, this is the image for the United Kingdom right now is bad. The reputation image is bad, that we're not upholding our treaties, upholding our deals. And I agree with them. It looks bad on them. All they do is release some bland report that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
I talked about the manufacturing thing. This was a key point. He said that Hong Kong represents 40% of UK investments in Asia. 40% in Asia of UK investments. So it's very important that we speak up for Hong Kong. Because if it represents 40% of our business in Asia,
we should go to Marks and Spencer and protest then.
It's just as important to do business with Hong Kong, make sure we keep up our treaties as much as it's important to do business directly into China.
Well, of course, I think most people were thinking, if not Hong Kong, then we move to Singapore, and we move our business to Shanghai. So easily to be replaced, with
Shanghai is not Hong Kong.
Singapore, then.
Singapore,
quite easy to move there. It's like BBC already in
because they were cowards. Okay, and that's why they left. CNN is still here. Bloomberg is here. CNBC is here. A lot of mainstream corporate whore news is still here.
Well,
yeah.
What I mean is that even with the 40%, you have to have someone who is really brave to speak up with China. But Patton. It seems that that's the only guy in UK who have that balls to say something like that in UK. Well,
he did say this.
Lucky Lee is not here.
we could shame on you, Lee, for your country. No, we're just kidding. If he said that if China is in breach of the one country, two systems, legally the UK has nothing they can do because except bang on the table and through diplomacy, because he didn't. Nobody really expected, that there would be a need for arbitration for this deal for the joint declaration. But he also says that he doesn't think that China wants to be a country, around the world that reneges on its deals. So they want to stick to the deal for 50 years. Thing is, the UK has to keep them in line, or they will continue to do the wrong thing.
I would just say that from the experience of this joint declaration signed by two countries, it actually reminds me of doing business with the Chinese people. Actually,
Chinese here or Chinese there?
Chinese
in mainland.
In mainland.
Okay.
So when I say Chinese, it's always the Chinese up there.
And it's Cantonese here?
Hong Kongers.
Hong Kongers or Canto?
So Taiwanese. So
okay, gotcha.
It's always like doing the business with Chinese people. They always say yes before you get what you want. They always say yes, and then they will sign all the contracts with you. But at the end of the day, whether they will follow the contracts are very difficult to get them after you deliver your products to them.
Yeah, I've heard that before as well. You're not the only one.
It's experience. So,
two things. Just last two things that he said that were really important. He said that right now, what it looks like is that Hong Kong leaders go up to China and tell their leadership,
and brand nosing.
No, well, that too, and they tell the leadership up there what they want to hear instead of what's going on for real and the real public opinion. He said they need to start telling the truth.
I mean, remember when the student talked with Carrie Lam? Carrie Lam said that probably they can think about writing a new report to reflect
to
what
the State Council, yes.
And then they are going to put in this Robert Chow's signature campaign result into that report. I mean, everybody here in Hong Kong knows about the credibility of that campaign is so low.
Very low.
But they still insist to put it in because they want to show to the PLC government that people, they don't really support the democracy here. We got a lot of people coming out to sign this signature campaign.
Like we said last week, that petition is very vague because it goes support the police. I support the police. Just because I don't sign doesn't mean I don't support the police. It's just that because I support the police doesn't mean I do not support the Occupy movement. All right, the umbrella movement. So that whole signature campaign is just, it means nothing because of its wording and everything like that. And Robert Chow, I mean, I cannot stand that parasite.
And the Keyboard Frontline also had this campaign to go against this signature campaign. And then we asked people who filled in some fake names that they can take a picture and then upload to our fan page. And then we got quite a number of these people, they actually chop the with these approval of to certify that form is correct. But people actually just putting the name of like some pop star Britney Spears or something, and then they still give this approval chop, and then Kanye has one vote.
Oh yeah,
it's quite.
Putting Ronaldo. I mean, people were putting in some really ridiculous Jesus Christ.
And how could Carrie Lam still put that campaign inside the report and try to cheat the PLZ government?
Why don't they do it the right way and do what using HKU POP and do it like that? Do your own referendum, but they don't want to.
Do you remember that we did it in June already?
Yes,
there was a
but
referendum.
No, the other side. Do it proper if you're going to do something like that. Stop this signature campaign. Oh, my numbers are bigger than yours. I mean, if you want true numbers, why is Apple Daily the #1 newspaper in Hong Kong? That is the only biggest...
Because the entertainment page is very funny.
True, but that is the #1 newspaper in Hong Kong. If if we are going by numbers, shouldn't Wenwei Po, Ta Kung Pao, or even the somewhat middle of the road Ming Pao and Sing Tao be having their numbers explode?
Well,
yeah. Isn't that a reflection of public opinion? Vote by your dollars, and people vote by their dollars by making Apple Daily #1. And #1 every year.
Well, some people just read the entertainment pages.
I don't think so. I mean, if you are a principal person, you wouldn't buy. I don't care if they had a bikini spread of.
They don't.
Somebody. I'm just saying, if they did, I wouldn't buy the paper because I hate what's in there. It's all BS. It's all state propaganda.
Well,
on principle, you don't buy a paper if you don't agree with it. But I wouldn't buy this Post if I had no different choice, but I have no choice. If I had no choice, I might buy it. But if I do have a choice, I wouldn't buy it.
You still have the Standard.
That is not a paper.
You still have the China Daily.
I get. Oh God, that is not a choice either. I'm screwed. Okay. Final point. He said that he wished the UK had bound China by the UN Covenant on Elections, and wished that he had been able to put in that into the Bill of Rights of Hong Kong. That's his regret.
Very thankful and very grateful that he would stand up for us, but no expectation to the UK government. Sorry about that.
Me neither, but it was just really wonderful to see him.
But this month, later this month, the UK Parliament will send people to Hong Kong to investigate.
Oh, right.
Yeah, not vacation.
The other part.
Right. So let's see what will happen.
Nothing. Okay. This week, Benny Tai, and I actually agreed with this.
What?
He said, dissolve the legislature. If you want a referendum, CY Leung has the power to dissolve the legislature when the proposal for the CE election is rejected. He has the power to dissolve it. It's in Article 50 of the Basic Law.
Yes, and
then a referendum, it would be a referendum. Everybody has to be voted back in. Then you would see what do people really support. I totally support it.
Then why not just do a referendum by election? Because
they'll run unopposed like last time.
What do you mean?
Remember the last time they did the resignation and then they got reelected? Nobody ran against them.
Yeah, because they want to pay down. And
exactly. And the same thing will happen this time. So don't do it again. Do this. This everybody would need their seats back.
But when you say that do this, then you have to be initiated by CY Leung.
Yes.
You think CY Leung would do something like this?
No.
I don't think so.
But I agree. If he did it, I would support it. Because then you can get a real reflection of public
You would
opinion.
support that someone should, go on the street and tell him to, dissolve the Legislative Council.
After the proposal is rejected. Because a part of in Article 50 says that it needs to be like a major bill that gets rejected. Then he can have the power to do it.
I mean, if they want to pass the bill, then they should pass the bill next year. right? Because
it is next year.
Yes.
No, Yes, next year, 2015, around before June or something.
There will be quite a lot of bills to be passed. So,
well, this is a major bill, so they may rework the schedule. But anyways, Carrie Lam has already said no.
I mean, it's also quite funny that all these poll establishment people keep saying that they say no to this suggestion of dissolving the legislative council. They say no to the referendum by resignation, and they say no to the students who are going to PRC to talk with the leaders, and they say no to everything. But they propose nothing. They propose up to now. I hear nothing from them that they can solve the problem or offer anything better.
Now, I agree with you that they've proposed nothing because, like Chris Patton said, there's no leadership over there. It's just here are ideas that we've been told probably, and accept and that's it. The stunt about going into the APEC meeting and trying to meet leaders, they're going to get stopped at the airport and sent back. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Really, it's that's not going to solve anything. If you want to get a closed-door meeting with certain officials, that might be a better way, and request it. Since this government shows that they have no leadership, they really have no power. I mean, and then you have this public opinion polls that have been taking place. 2/3 are saying end Occupy. So clearly they're losing public support. And like I said, I think 3 weeks ago, they should consolidate into Admiralty first and return the streets. But nobody's going to do that.
But first you have to look at this. Who's doing the poll?
Oh well, no. One was what, Chinese U
and
DAB. Yeah, okay, fine.
Well, DAB with the one you can just ignore them.
Even if we do ignore them,
right?
And we take the credibility of the other poll. But the poll both had similar results.
And the Chinese U won. And you also have to look at these, not just looking at the result, like the percentage. Because you have to also, I would just say that you also have to look at the age group. When you look at the age group.
Young people are saying keep it going. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
And then the old people or the people above 30, then they say they should go.
Right.
Now it's more like a fight between different generations.
It is a complete fight of generations. I mean, we got people unfriending their parents and stuff like that.
They should never add their parents to their Facebook.
Yeah, why would you do that?
Exactly.
Anyways, no, I mean, look. Look, I have to also think about this sometimes as a politician. Sometimes I'm no politician, but if I was a politician, I would have ended Causeway Bay first.
Oh yeah. The one actually remember that.
I keep forgetting that it's still there.
Yeah,
I would have ended that as a good gesture to the people of Hong Kong, and then people wouldn't be so affected because the tram line then wouldn't be affected like it is right now. That is very important. And then eventually you would have to talk down Mong Kok. But only if there was some concession coming out from the government. You do it step by step, but you cannot have a wholesale, no, give us our civic nomination and then we'll move. No, you're not going to get it. I'm sorry, but it's true. It's not going to happen.
But there is just like what we just talked about, how UK should deal with China, is that they will only respect you when you are a good fighter. When you have nothing that back you up, then how could you fight?
But when you're losing the hearts and minds of the people that you're supposedly fighting for, you got a problem. It's a hard balance, but you got to make it. If these pandems had the skills that a politician required, because I'm not lionizing them at all by saying that the pro-establishment are the only idiots out there. The pandems seem to be more concerned with getting on BBC these days than they are about actually helping solve the crisis. I don't know. There's so many experienced pandemocrats in there. Some of them are new, so maybe they don't understand the way of the game. I'll let that slide. But some of them have been there for decades, and they look as bad as C.Y. Leung trying to resolve this.
It seems that even within the pandemic and the student groups, there are some generation gap as well, because people don't really like those older legislators from the pandemic.
Some young people in there. See, these think tanks that are being made, these committees that are being formed, it's always people that supposedly think we're older, we have more money, we know more than you. That is not true.
These people, they are supposed to be in the coffin, not in these.
Okay, no, I wouldn't go that far. I don't wish death on anybody, but I'm just saying they are out of touch with reality when it comes to the people that are under 40. They don't understand the problems that are happening because they think that, oh, my son's doing well. Well, your son is your son and will have the privilege because he's your son. Not everybody's that privileged.
I agree. So
these people are morons.
So our very beloved Regina Ye proposed to the student group this week.
Sorry, I just threw up in my mouth. I swallowed that back in. Yeah, go ahead.
And she's proposed that the nominating committee can include the students.
Okay. Anyways, next story. I'm just going to say this about this: the nominating committee is unrepresentative. 1,200 people does not represent me. Okay, 1.2 million might, but not 1,200.
But they also add a condition to it. There's these people, these students who can, go into the nominating committee. They must be someone who's subsidized by the government.
What does that mean?
You got subsidies to go to the university.
So you have to be on student loans?
Yep. No. You have to be subsidized. They have to subsidize places in university.
Oh, I understand.
So these people should be from the subsidized places of university, but not those who paid all the money to go to university. Those students couldn't get into the
So if I don't vote a certain way, I might lose my seat the following year?
Yeah, so it's very funny. She's very creative, and apparently she become one of the target of the netizen this week because she said something like Joshua Wong shouldn't be on the Time magazine, and then people making fun of her because she's so jealous.
All right, we got to rapid fire through some of these stories, okay? C.Y. Leung says he's jealous of Guangdong's 7% economic growth. China has fudged numbers. Everybody knows that. 7% growth for such a large economy is actually not that impressive. Hong Kong can't have that number because we're a very mature economy now. We have to think outside of the box to increase our growth. Growth in the finance industry does not mean growth for everybody else. It's just growth for a select banksters. Speaking of banksters, a bankster murdered 2 prostitutes.
Not prostitute, right? It's actually domestic helpers, or they really
who were moonlighting maybe as prostitutes. It does happen in the city. You just go to Wan Chai. You found 2 people dead. I don't know what's up with these banksters, but they're either killing people or killing themselves. There's like 42 have committed suicide in the last couple of years.
But have you read that article from CNN or Time magazine? There is some bankster also writing an article saying that he was lucky that he moved out of Hong Kong because Hong Kong is so much, you can get drugs and you will have getting women is so easy in Hong Kong, and I'm lucky that I moved out of Hong Kong and I don't have to be die here or something.
Why?
I don't understand why too.
I think there's this expat thing of you go to a foreign country like it's a foreign city like Hong Kong. It's easy money, easy women, easy drinks, all that stuff.
The way he writes is like so sexist as well, because he writing something like it's so easy to get women here as long as you want it.
Yeah, I know. It is a stereotype. All right. The LegCo voted against investigating C.Y. Leung's $50 million deal with UGL. No surprise there. I mean, Ann Chang got up there and says she was sad and disgusted and all this stuff, that we're actually investigating a god like C.Y. Leung, and we should actually be licking his toe jam between his toe fingers. I mean, that's toe fingers. Between his toes, that's how.
I thought it was toasted.
No. His toes. I mean, that's these people think about kings and royalty and nobility. I mean, we're not a monarch. He is not my king.
She got a thing for C.Y. Leung.
Probably. And I think I'm going to end it here, unless you have something else. Anything?
Pretty much this week.
Last story, and this affects everybody. Samsung's Samsung came out this week, okay, and they're coming out with these new so-called smart TVs. Anything smart run, but smart TVs, okay. And nowadays they've got cameras, mics, you name it in them, internet access, you name it. And now it's in the terms and conditions in the damn manual says, we record your conversations and give them to third parties. So watch what you say. That's what it says.
It's just like in long time ago, we have these movies saying that the television actually...
1984.
Yeah, is it actually watching you?
1984. Yeah. Okay? That's
it's
what it is.
Funny.
That's exactly what this is. It's a telescreen. It's gone two-way instead of one-way. That is completely scary. I would never buy a TV like that.
I would love to read the terms and conditions.
You can go to Infowars.com that publishes.
I don't know how it could pass the privacy law here. How could they do that?
I don't know, but it's in their policy, okay? This is, quote unquote, please be aware that if your spoken words include personal or other sensitive information, that information will be among the data captured and transmitted to a third party through your use of voice recognition.
I don't know, how could they...
In the States, it's happening. But how freaking scary is that? I mean, this is the problem with all this technology. I am for technology. I'm not a Luddite. Okay, I'm not a Mennonite. I'm not a Amish. Okay,
yeah, I can see that passport.
Yeah, okay. I love my phone as well. Right, it is a tracker system. I'm literally I got a tracker system with me all the time. Right, because you can triangulate GPS with this thing. All our phones. Okay, but there needs to be a limit, and we need to stop certain things that happen with technology. We cannot just freely allow this stuff.
I agree.
Okay? Samsung, you are nominated for the Shame on You Award. Anyways, next we have an interview with world-renowned trends forecaster Gerald Celente, and he's going to discuss the Chinese, Hong Kong, world economies, plus all the stuff that's happening geopolitically in the APAC region, plus the U.S. elections. You don't want to miss this because he's been on CNN, CBS, NBC, all the major networks. This guy knows what he's talking about. It's something different for our show, and I hope we can bring more these kinds of guests on our show. So please stick around, and after the interview, we will, of course, have our Shame on You Award. And welcome back to the interview portion of Eye on Hong Kong podcast. On the line, we have Trends Journal publisher Gerald Celente. Now, Trends Journal, what do? They forecast upcoming trends in the global economy, the state of the world when it comes to conflict and other issues that affect us, even though it might be thousands of miles away. But being Hong Kong, even the littlest thing can affect us because of our unique way that our economy is structured. So without further ado, I welcome Gerald Celente to the program. Gerald, very nice to have you here.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
So I just want to get off, to the races with this question. Your thoughts on the umbrella movement that has been initiated in Hong Kong just in the end of September.
Is that the Occupy Central?
Yes. It's now called the umbrella movement. I mean,
now called the umbrella movement.
Yes.
I'm here in the States, so I'm really only getting the news from the major wire services, wherever they may be. Very interesting. For example, when you go to China Daily or Global Times, very little coverage. And in the States, we get scant coverage as well. So it's very foggy here to the people. And as I watch it, it seems like a standstill with nothing going on, I'm just, again, telling you from the perception that I'm getting, not from the knowledge that I have. Mm-hmm. And that it's not going anywhere. And what they're doing, as I see it, is they're just wearing out the crowds without getting much of a solution. And as we see it, again, the information that's reported here, what it is that will there be any type of democratic elections, I believe, 2017?
Correct.
And that seems to be the major issue. So it's not getting a lot of play in the States. When it does make the the newspapers, for example, and I'm still a reader of hard copy newspapers for a variety of reasons, it usually makes maybe like in the New York Times, page A17.
So not exactly front page stuff.
Not at all. Most Americans don't even know what's going on.
But one thing I've noticed that you've been forecasting as a trend is that protests is not just happening in Hong Kong, but it's actually becoming a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah, it is, because systems are breaking down and people are starting to realize the power that they have. However, I've been at this a lot of years. I began my career. I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County, which is the richest county in the United States. And I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate. I taught American politics and campaign technology at St. John's University. And for many years, 6 years, I was a government affairs specialist for the chemical industry. I used to live between Chicago and D.C. So I know what it looks like, and I know how these things become effective. And I can tell you from my experience that one of the reasons these protest movements only go so far is that they don't have a battle plan for victory. And they go around trying in many ways to work within the system when the fact is there are no rules. If you play by their rules, you lose because they control the game. You know, it's like going to Las Vegas and the game is, you know, it's a fixed game.
Right.
You know, they know how many people are going to win and how many are going to lose. So you got to bring in your own deck of cards. So for these things to work, they really have to have a strategy that everyone's on board for, with a goal and an objective. And I remember what happened with the Occupy Peace movement in the States. The Occupy Wall Street movements.
Right.
And they didn't have a plan. And they were criticized for it and nothing happened. So yes, we're seeing the populist movements moving around the world because people are getting shafted. It's obvious to everyone. I mean, in Hong Kong, for example, you know, from the data I read, you know, very few own most of everything. And to different varieties, it's the same thing around the world. There's a small club that controls the whole game, and everybody's working for the man. And enough people have the dignity, courage, respect, and integrity to say, I've had enough. You know, you're not my slave owner. And we're going to do something. So these populist movements are the future. And let's not forget, you know, I'm here in America, there was the American Revolution, the French Revolution. You know, what did happen? It happened from a few people with enough courage to say, we've had enough.
Right.
So yes, we're going to see these movements continuing to spread.
Your analysis is actually spot on, because the umbrella movement doesn't really have a plan. They come out with ideas over and over again, but some of them are not executed, or they cancel them last minute. There really doesn't seem to be any direction that it's going in at the moment. But also we see that from the other side, the government, before you would think that they would try to solve this politically, maybe sit down and have serious discussions, but they are now taking a wait 'em out approach. And I don't know if that's a good strategy either, but I think a lot of people here also have memories of Tiananmen Square, and they don't want a repeat of that. And China, I don't think, wants that image anymore, that when there's dissent, they crush it with tanks.
Well, just for the record, what's going on in Hong Kong could never happen in the States.
Why is that?
They would have cleared you guys, those people out a long time ago. I mean, this country has become so fascist, it's disgusting. You saw what happened in Ferguson, Missouri.
Yes.
Yeah, that's only part of it. You know, they'll beat the hell out of you in no time. Yep. And that's what there's no rights left in this country. There's so few of them. The great ones have been taken away. They even have a thing called protest zones.
Free speech zones.
They'll lock you off into a certain corner. Free speech zones. The whole country used to be a free speech zone, and now the Supreme Court ruled that there's people, if they don't want them in the free speech zones, they're not allowed to go in there. Well, what they're doing in Hong Kong could never happen here. If that happened in New York City, this thing would have been over a long time ago. I mean, they let Occupy Wall Street go on because it was in a park. And then when they had enough of it, they cleaned out the park.
Right. We got three major throughways that are being occupied right now, and it's not like because what I saw in Ferguson was militarized police, not even regular.
It's militarized everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. You look at the last Trends Journal, the one before this one, before Ferguson, we did a story, Cops Gone Wild. They've given them all this military equipment from Iraq and Afghanistan. They have Humvees, they have, all these SWAT teams. No, it would never happen here. I'm telling you. Like what's going on with the umbrella movement would not happen in the States. It would have been over a long time ago.
I have to agree with you. Knowing, following the U.S. For quite a while now, it has seemed to have degenerated. But let's move on to the next topic: the state of the Chinese economy. Now, you talk to mainstream economists, and all day long they will say China's the model, China's the future, China's the way to go. But in your latest Trends Journal, you're saying that the Chinese economy is actually trending towards a recession. Now, why do you believe that's occurring in China?
Well, because a lot of it's a very simple formula. Mm-hmm. If the United States and Europe don't buy, China's not manufacturing.
Right.
And if China's not manufacturing, Australia, Brazil, Chile, Bolivia, they're not exporting their natural resources. So you have a slowdown in purchasing. About 20 to 25% of China's GDP is built on real estate.
Right.
You look at China's real estate in 2013, numbers were up around 27%. According to official figures already, it's down over 10%.
Right.
We see the photos of empty cities. Reports coming out, and again, these are only numbers that I know that are reported, so I can't verify their factuality, but they seem to be generally accepted as truth. You're looking at 70 million luxury apartments that are vacant. So, to me, China, the Chinese central bank just announced, I think yesterday, that they dumped in several 100,000 yuan into the system.
More stimulus
to pump it up. So it's a Ponzi scheme. Just like in the States, they have a different name for it. I don't know how you say quantitative easing in Chinese, but I know they call it Abenomics in Japan, and they call it I'll do anything you want over there in Europe in the ECB by Mario Draghi. And that's all it's going. So China's economy it's on the downward slope. You look at their GDP numbers, they're 1990 levels?
It's quite low, yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's not going to turn around. By the way, China's greatest problems, not Japan or America, with geopolitics, China's greatest problem is its people. And they got 1.2 billion of them there, and with a lot of them out of work, you're going to see a populist movement. I mean, and I was reading, and again, the facts only come out, sporadically. I remember one year there was something like 50,000 uprisings in China. And, they don't get reported very often. No, China's facing a lot of problems, and the biggest one is going to be internally if manufacturing slows down. There's massive overcapacity in China.
And that's what I've been saying on our show for the last couple of months, is that Xi Jinping, the president, is actually consolidating power through this so-called anti-bribery, anti-corruption drive, getting pledges of allegiance from the PLA, using the terrorist threat to put more police in every corner of the street, especially in Beijing. And I said it's not for security. They know things are coming down, and it's coming down hard. So they're preparing now so they can control the situation.
Exactly. And they're doing it in a lot of the countries.
Yeah, and they're saber-rattling with Japan as a distraction and Philippines. Do you agree with that?
To some extent with Japan. Yeah, with Japan, what's going on now, actually, this is a very, it mirrors World War II. Mm-hmm. Americans, all they know is that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. They don't look at what happened before that. The Japanese were undercutting the market. Mm-hmm. And the Americans started cutting them off from natural resources. They couldn't get rubber, they couldn't get oil. And Japan said, we're going to get our own. Well, Japan's doing the same thing now with Abenomics. Look at the yuan. It's fallen some 50%. It's gained. The yen has fallen from 50% from the yuan.
Right.
And and about 40% from the won, the Korean currency.
Right.
So what does that do? It improves their export market. That's what this is about.
So it's currency war?
Up about this. It's a currency war, and that brings on the trade war.
Right.
So here's the scenario. You have a crash, you have a recession, depression, you have currency wars, trade wars, and world wars. They use the war element as the last card in the game to cover up the economic failure. How many times do people have to see the same story replayed? Just different actors with different names.
I have to totally agree with your analysis there. We'll move on to Hong Kong's economy. Hong Kong's economy, you know that the Hong Kong dollar is actually pegged to the U.S. dollar. And whatever the Fed does, we have to follow suit. So when they have record low interest rates, we have record low interest rates, which has absolutely, in a way, destroyed the real economy in Hong Kong because our inflation has gone through the roof. Property prices are insane. Do you think that the Hong Kong dollar would be better off depegging or floating its currency or getting rid of it altogether and going with the yuan?
I would say they'd be better off going with the yuan, so you have a central power of action. Again, from my reading about what's now called the umbrella movement, I remember they quoted one woman saying, all the restaurants and what was it? All of the family restaurants and dress shops or whatever it was, they're gone now.
Correct.
And all there are drug outlets and places to buy gold or something, jewelry,
high-end watches, high-end clothes, and so-called pharmacies. But really, they're just selling everyday needs at inflated prices to the mainland tourists that come here.
Yeah, so that's what she said it's become. Mm-hmm. And it's a multinational takeover. We're coming out with the top trends of 2015 shortly. Mm-hmm. And one of them, I'll give you one of them. It's bankism, not capitalism. Stop the baloney about this being capitalism. It ain't even close, man. It's a rigged game by the banks. Save the BS. Anybody that wants to go, teach economics 101, knock yourself out. This is a banking takeover. You said it with the central bank pegging the Hong Kong currency to the U.S. dollar. It's one big banking scam. Do you think it was, here we go. Let's really pretend to be stupid. They did away with quantitative easing last Wednesday in the United States.
Right.
On Friday, they announced another round of Abenomics, a money-pumping scam that would be equivalent when you compare the GDPs of each country to the United States Fed pumping in $3 trillion.
And most of that money's come here.
What?
Most of that money has actually come here because they're buying real assets with all that printed money.
Exactly. And what they're doing, they're keeping the Ponzi scheme going, because then you look at their pension fund that has $1.4 trillion, and now they're going to invest 50% of it into the equity markets, both in Japan and globally. It's a rigged game. It's bankism. And all the banks do is they make you, what they do, scam is very simple. We used to call them loan sharks when I grew up in the Bronx. And here's what they do. Hey, here's some money for you. Don't worry about it. Here, low interest rate. You pay me back when you get it. And all it is they keep loaning you money, and you become an indentured servant, and you have to work to pay them off, and then they create jobs that pay nothing. That's all this is. It's a banking takeover globally.
You say that that we're getting jobs that pay nothing. You're absolutely right. We have a 3.3% unemployment rate. That's pretty much, you could say full employment. But the types of jobs we get are these crappy jobs where all you're doing is really servicing the tourists that are coming through here, and you're not even making, $1,200 to $1,400 US a month. And with property prices at a decent, I wouldn't even call this decent these days, but about 400 square foot apartment, you're looking at these days 1.5 million US dollars. It's insane. Nobody can reach these property prices anymore. Who's just working, 9 to 5. So you're correct in your analysis when you say that this is no longer capitalism. We've been harping on this for a while. We're not in capitalism. Capitalism is not the problem because we're not in it.
You're not in it.
Yeah.
And so what the socialists are going to do, they're going to blame this as a failure of capitalism.
Correct.
It's not a failure of capitalism. It's a failure of fascism. It's called a merger of state and corporate powers.
Right.
And that's what you have. The corporate powers are running the governments. And there is no government. All they are a bunch of flunkies for the corporations. There's not a man or woman among them. Look who's right. Look at Cameron, Obama, Holland. Right. Look around the world. These aren't men. They're boys. And they take orders, and they follow and do what they're told to do.
I completely agree with you. We have an example right here. Our former chief secretary, Raphael Hui, who's the number 2 in Hong Kong, is on trial right now for accepting bribes while he was in office from the billionaire tycoon brothers, the Kwok brothers of Sun Hung Kai Properties, and they're in trial right now. And most of the evidence is damning. The verdict hasn't come out. The prosecution is now going to closing arguments. But you're correct. They are not working for the best interests of the people. They're working for the best interests of their corporate masters.
Yeah, that's it. And themselves.
And themselves.
They're sociopaths and psychopaths.
Best way to describe them.
And we just had an election here in the States.
Right.
Yeah, they threw out the bums and brought in the scums.
So nothing's going to change with the Republicans taking over.
The inepts have just replaced the incompetents. Yeah. I mean, how much more proof? What are you bringing in the same group that caused the other problems, that caused a different round of problems? How could any respectable adult look up to these people? How could anybody with 1 ounce of self-respect look up to these people?
What do you think, Mr. Celente, is the only way to solve our current predicament where we're living, 9 to 5, earning not just earning enough to get by, and we didn't used to have an economy like this here or even in the US or Canada. We could have our own store, we could have a decent, a blue-collar job, and still have enough for a car, a mortgage to pay, and a house and all that stuff. Now it's just, I can just barely make my rent. I can barely put food on the table. And, of course, the food we're getting is crappy because we can't afford the good stuff anymore. What is the solution to all this, in your opinion?
it begins with the individual. Mm-hmm. And to me, people have to regain their courage, dignity, self-respect, integrity, and as an Italian, passion, passione. Mm-hmm. And they don't have it. Until that happens, nothing's going to change. And the system that I believe in to work the best, the model exists. It's the Swiss system, direct democracy. Let the people vote. Mm-hmm. And if they could do it in Switzerland, you could do it anywhere. If you could bank online, you could vote online. What's the big deal? And so to us, when you want a referendum have a referendum, you put it on the ballot. And the other one is anti-globalization. The people have become much. It's not globalization; it's multinationalization. And to go back to your own currency, and you have self-sustaining economies as much as you can.
I think, though, Hong Kong can't really be a self-sustaining economy because of how its uniqueness as an entreport, since its inception. But the reason I've had you on to discuss not just Hong Kong issues but world issues is because when one little thing happens in one country, it affects us here because of our unique status as a free port, as an entreport. For example, when the EU put sanctions on Russia, Russia could no longer get money from London banks as a loan. So what happened was that the Russian banks have come to Hong Kong and getting loans here. So we're very interconnected in this, dot on a map, but I think it's quite significant overall. And
well, that's part of your self-sustaining economy. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not that you're going to manufacture and grow everything. Mm-hmm. You try to make it as self-sustaining as you can. So that's a unique element within the economy. So that's the strength. So what I'm saying is that for countries that can and use what they have, you mentioned Russia.
Right.
Russia has all the natural and human resources they need to be a self-sustaining economy. Mm-hmm. And when you look throughout Europe, so do many of the other countries. And one of the big trends we're going to be coming up with are the breakthroughs in what's called alternative energy. But they're not alternative energies. What's going to happen is that just as we no longer use ice and refrigeration has made ice obsolete, that's like calling the light bulb an alternative energy.
Right.
When compared to candles. So you're going to start seeing a point where oil and fossil fuels become a thing of the past. Mm-hmm. And new energy developments, and we're into the 21st century.
Right.
You're going to see major breakthroughs start happening. So when that happens, countries then become even more self-sustaining. I'm a believer in people maintaining their identities. Every day I meditate. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the meditation, I thank the ancestors. Because as I see it, and again, only speaking for myself, mm-hmm. I see it, I'm just a piece of their DNA. And I'm me because of them. And all the attributes that I've picked up from them and all that I've learned from them. So to me, it's, as I say, my blood is Napolitano, but my heart is American. Mm. And I could never be me if I was born in any other country. But I thank the ancestors for what I have, and I do my very best to maintain that connection with my ethnicity. So when I'm talking about self-sustaining economies, I think the strength of the world is the individuality and personalities of each nation and the people within them, and that's being lost.
Our guest has been Gerald Celente, the publisher of the Trends Journal. You can subscribe to the Trends Journal at trendsjournal.com. That's trendsjournal.com. Is it quarterly, Mr. Celente, or?
Well, the magazine is a quarterly, the hard copy, of course, and digital. And then we do a Trends Monthly. Mm-hmm. And we also have Trends in the News. We do the real news each weekday, every Monday through Friday, of the real news going on so that you're ahead of the news and on top of the trends. So you get a lot with the Trends Journal.
And you host those, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So please visit trendsjournal.com, and I thank you, Mr. Celente, for coming on our show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and all the best and for success and to create a future that's deserving of a high civilization. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And welcome back to the final segment of Eye on Hong Kong. We, of course, are going to give our Shame on You award.
Right.
And I nominate Samsung for this ridiculous privacy policy where they can record your conversation and send it to some third party.
I would nominate Samsung too because Hong Kong TV are going to be launched within 1 or 2 weeks, and a lot of people using Samsung to watch the new Hong Kong TV channel.
Right, because HKTV is not terrestrial; it's actually going through the internet. And with Samsung TVs, you can just directly connect to the TV and get the programming instead of getting a separate box.
Yep.
So it's very dangerous to have this kind of technology, and they're not that I'm against technology, but not when it's used against you like that. So Samsung, congratulations, you have just received the
Shame on you
award, and maybe one day record in Korean so it can be completely understood. And that's the end of our show. Please subscribe to our Facebook page. Like it, facebook.com/IOnHKPod. Twitter @IOnHKPod. You can get the rest of the details there. YouTube.com/IOnHK. You can get the rest of our contact details there. And, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Gerald Celente. We will try to have more international guests like that in the future, not just local guests. But, of course, tell us what you think on our Facebook page. You like these kinds of guests? Do you want different kinds of? You got any guest suggestions? We are always open to hear your suggestions. And that's the end of our show. Goodbye.
Goodbye.